Aiyima just released the brand new T3 Pro, a feature-packed phono preamp for just $99. And it has me wondering, is this my new favorite budget phono preamp? In order to decide, let's compare it to another preamp in the same price range. But be sure to stick around because in this video, I've got to come clean and admit something kind of embarrassing. If you are new to vinyl playback or phono preamps, just note that the phono preamp is what's needed to amplify the signal coming from the stylus on your turntable for our ears to hear, and it is only required if your receiver or amplifier doesn't have a phono input or if your turntable doesn't have a built-in phono preamp. The question of whether or not you should invest in an external phono preamp is often debated by vinyl lovers and is a video topic in and of itself. But I've used external phono preamps similar to the T3 Pro for years and have always enjoyed the experience. So I'm looking forward to diving into this preamp to learn more. Now, Aiyima did send me this phono preamp for review, but they're not compensating me and didn't have any opinions before posting this video. The first thing that excited me about the T3 Pro is that it didn't come with tubes like the previous T3 model. Now, this will be triggering for some people, but I've never found tubes in these phono preamps to be anything more than buffers, and therefore they don't provide a traditional 3D tube-like sound. Now, people will disagree with me based on their experience, but I've just found these tubes on preamps like this to be kind of gimmicky, and I like that Aiyima didn't bother adding tubes to the T3 Pro. I'll explain in more detail in a few minutes, but the sound of this preamp really surprised me. Somehow, Aiyima has managed to design a phono preamp for both moving magnet and moving coil cartridges for just $99. Now, I've had other phono preamps in this price range that work for both cartridges, but I've yet to have one like the T3 Pro that also offers you the ability to switch input impedances for your moving coil cartridge and also adjust for gain and volume control. The gain control will provide you a range from 0 to 39 decibels. For anyone new to vinyl and cartridges, you may be wondering, do I have a moving magnet or moving coil cartridge? Well, there's a great chance that you own a moving magnet cartridge like most people do. Moving coil cartridges incorporate a different design and they're oftentimes rather expensive. So most beginners just getting into vinyl do not have a moving coil cartridge, but instead have moving magnet. Now this leads me to my embarrassing confession that I mentioned earlier. You ready? Here we go. I've never owned a moving coil cartridge. I know, it seems like I probably should have spent the money to upgrade by now, but I just haven't found a reason to do so. Now I almost bought one for this video, but I decided at the last minute that I just didn't want to spend the money to buy the cheapest one I could find, which was still $250. I've already spent $200 on a great Audio-Technica Shibata moving magnet cartridge that I absolutely love. So I just didn't want to spend the extra money on moving coil. However, if you are someone that has incorporated a moving coil cartridge into your system, please let me know which one you own and maybe give me a suggestion on which one I should consider buying as I upgrade my system later on down the road. So I'll be honest and admit that I didn't test any of the T3 Pro's moving coil cartridge features. I just don't have the gear to do so. But based on my positive experience using it on the moving magnet side, I feel pretty confident that those features will work as they should. Again, the T3 Pro allows for impedance switching for moving coil cartridges and includes gain control to help you perfectly dial in the sound. But if all these extra features stress you out, don't worry. There's a good chance you won't even need them. Let me explain. Honestly, I'm impressed that Aiyima even added these extra moving coil features to a phono preamp that only costs $99. If you do a quick search for moving coil phono preamps, you will see they are rather pricey, just like moving coil cartridges. But I actually think that most people, probably like yourself, are only going to use this with moving magnet cartridges and will not even need to use the impedance switching option. You can just connect your turntable and adjust the gain and volume and you are good to go. So don't let these added moving coil features stress you out if you are considering this just for moving magnet. So how does a T3 Pro sound? Most importantly, this preamp is very quiet. I didn't hear any hiss or distortion or noise at all while operating. In fact, it was very easy to integrate into my system. I was impressed with the sound stage, and I thought it was adequate for a phono preamp at this price, but I was mostly impressed with the channel separation it provided. If you're using the internal phono preamp on your turntable, upgrading to the T3 Pro will provide a more impressive playback experience at a low price. Another popular phono preamp in this price range is the Pro-Ject Phono Box, which retails for $129. This preamp can also handle both moving magnet and moving coil cartridges, but you'll notice it doesn't have the switchable input impedance or gain and volume controls like the less expensive T3 Pro. So how do these preamps differ in sound? Now keep in mind, this is my subjective opinion based on the equipment I'm using, which is my vintage Pioneer PL560 turntable with the aforementioned $200 Shibata stylus that I'm using. So your mileage may vary depending on the turntable and cartridge you are using in your system at home. While listening to Don't Swallow the Cap by The National side by side with the Pro-Ject, the Phono Box tends to highlight higher frequencies, like there are guitar sounds near the end of the song that are pulled out of the mix, while the T3 Pro sort of puts that back into the overall mix of the song. Overall, the T3 Pro is a darker sound, which highlights Matt's low singing voice, but that can sometimes overshadow the musical nuance hidden within the track. The Pro-Ject has always been a very punchy, lively sounding preamp to my ears, while the T3 Pro presents a sound that's comfortably dark and easy to listen to. Fans of bass may prefer the T3 Pro over the Pro-Ject Phono Box, but again, a lot of that is going to depend on the overall sound system that you're incorporating these preamps into. In summary, even though I didn't have the gear needed to test the moving coil features of the T3 Pro, I still think most people will buy this for the moving magnet features instead, and I feel they will enjoy the enhanced sound provided by this preamp, especially if they are using the Phono preamp built into their turntable. Now, earlier in this video, I said I didn't like when they incorporate tubes into these Phono preamps, and that might be based on a review of a Phono preamp that I did earlier this year that incorporated tubes. That was with the Duke Audio T4 Pro Phono preamp. If you'd like to learn more about that preamp, you can do so by watching this video here.